Thank you so much. Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. The questionnaire which Arnie mentioned helped me determine that my communication style is way too supportive, with a pinch of analytical, and just a tiny bit of direct, in the 10 to 1 proportion. At the same time, a colleague of mine once told me that when I speak to my husband in Russian, I'm a completely different person. She said I sounded direct, assertive, and even, and she apologized, rude. Well, otherwise he wouldn't listen, right? I'm just kidding. Of course, there is a lot of subjective thing in this perception, and the difference can be explained by the difference in languages. Still, there is a substantial truth in it, in this observation. Of course, the way I communicate myself to this world has changed a lot since I came to live in the United States. And I want to demonstrate it to you on an example of humor and just one aspect of humor. What it used to be during the 40 years of my Soviet and post Soviet life, how it has changed, and what I've learned from my way from then to now. Before I proceed, I want to make two disclaimers. First, this speech is about humor, but it's not humor, so no kidding. And second, there is no black or white in my stories. This is just a tiny slice of my personal experience and my memory of a very complicated phenomenon. So the best way to describe it, I'm going to tell you the truth, but not all the truth. The function of humor I decided to talk about is the defensive one. The humor is being used to mitigate any random bullying from outside. And in my life before, it was extremely important, and it's fully obsolete from my life now. You see, in the Soviet Union, most of us lived a very exceedingly communal life. Many families, if not all, lived in small apartments which you would call one or two bedroom apartments, usually at least 3 generations. Not even talking about communal apartments, when people would be placed in without any consideration for their relationships. One family per room with a communal space for kitchen and restrooms. Most of us would come to work every day and from work or to school in a bus, in a trolley, or in a subway car. And usually during the rush hours, the car and the trolley and the bus would be so heavily and densely packed that we would be standing just shoulder to shoulder. We wouldn't need to hold onto anything, and we would move synchronously with each start, each stop, each road bump. Of course, this type of life didn't allow us for too much, even if any, personal space, and the ability of using a sharp word to establish very strong and solid boundaries between us and our people and those we wanted to keep outside was a very unique and necessary skill. The skill we would start building from the time we were very little, especially girls. And I'm going to make a confession to you. To tell you the truth, I was very good at it, exceptionally good at it. And I feel comfortable telling you today about it because you will have no way to deduce differently. Since I have never used this skill of mine here, and I have no plans to do it for a variety of reasons. First of all, I can have as much personal space here as I could ever wish for, and it doesn't account for social distancing ever. Second, the world here is exceptionally gentle to me. I still remember the first time somebody apologized to me on the street when I stepped on their foot. To tell you, it was a surprise, a pleasant surprise. And third, from my personal experience, it's very hard, if not ever possible, to tell a joke which would be directed outward, improvising for a foreigner. Because I, as a joke teller, if you wish, and my audience have different cultural backgrounds, different experiences, and different expectations. That's why I have switched to self-deprecated jokes, because I can always understand myself, or let's say almost always can understand myself, and I would never get offended by myself. The exception is when I have people with a similar background in the same room, because no matter how harsh I can be on myself, I certainly don't want to be harsh on my audience. In conclusion, if there is a huge lesson I've learned from my experience, and the lesson which has been reinforced by my Toastmaster experience, is that if I want to be heard, and I do want to be heard, right? Unless I'm singing in the shower, I need to make sure I take my audience into account. That means that I will build my speech differently. I will deliver my speech differently. And I may even shape my message differently for different audiences. And I believe that this approach can save us a lot of dangers and a lot of conflicts, even for those of us whose background doesn't include communal apartments. Mr. Toastmaster.